Hello, I'm Paul Spencer, and together with Carl, I've created an app called NewsDesk, and I've been working on the front end and back end parts of the project. So, why create NewsDesk? News stories are continuously developing, so as a result of that, news feeds are continuously updated as well, which means that organising, keeping track of the articles that you're interested in can be difficult. Chances are, if you go to a news website and try and find an article that you looked at an hour previously, chances are it's going to be further down the page, meaning it's difficult to retrieve and view. NewsDesk solves this problem by allowing a user to create a collection of references to articles from multiple sources for easy access to the full articles at any time. So in a nutshell, NewsDesk is an app that presents a summary of news articles from a variety of sources based on search criteria. After logging into the app, users can save articles to the profile for later access and can also share articles to social media platforms.
So we used Figma for our design collaboration. The Figma board allowed us to organise the minimum viable product for the website and set out the layout and functionality. It helped us to stay organised and streamline the design process, making sure that we were all on the same page. Next, we used Trello for project management. Trello allowed us to break the project down into smaller tasks and assign them to team members. This then made it a lot easier to track tasks and stay organised. For our team meetings, we used Google Meets. This allowed us to have virtual face-to-face meetings while working remotely. We were able to discuss important issues, brainstorm ideas, and collaborate in real time. Then we used Slack for general communication. Slack allowed us to communicate quickly and easily when it didn't need to be in real time. It helped us stay connected and informed throughout the entire project. Hi, I'm Carl. For the front end of the website, we used React for building the website's user interface because this allowed us to quickly build reusable UI components. For testing, we used Jest and React testing library, creating tests as we went along and then building components to meet the test specification. We also used various NPM packages to help with the functionality of the website. We used the Axios HTTP client, which allowed us to make requests from inside of our React components, making it easier to retrieve JSON data from the GNews API. Another NPM package we used is React Fast Marquee. React Fast Marquee is a lightweight marquee component that allowed us to create a scrolling news ticker on our website's homepage, which displays the latest news headlines in real time. This was an important feature for our website as it allows users to stay updated on the latest news without having to navigate away from the homepage. We integrated Facebook Login, which is a React component that provides a simple way for users to log into our website using their Facebook credentials. Finally, we use an NPM package called React Share, which is a library that provides social media sharing buttons for React. This allowed us to add social media buttons to our news articles, making it easier for our users to share content across their social media platforms. We have a main container which has our Axios request, which returns an array of objects as JSON data, which is held in state and passed to another component to display the articles on individual cards. The main container also contains functions to order the articles by date and filter by publisher, which are then passed to the sidebar component as props. The sidebar component then takes those props and passes them into a new set using a spread operator to remove any duplicate source names, then passes those source names into a HTML select element. This allowed us to create a dynamic drop-down menu for filtering by source, and this will automatically update to match the publishers returned from the API. The navbar component has a search function to allow users to search by keywords in the title. We also use links from React Router DOM. This allowed us to select different news categories and also switch between light and dark mode.
For the backend, we went with Superbase, which is a cloud-based backend service provider. One of the reasons for this is because Superbase actually creates its own API based on your individual database structure and also supplies the code required to perform operations on that data. NewsDesk uses a Facebook login service, and the first thing we need to do when a user logs in is check whether they've already logged in previously. To do this, we use a combination of useState and useEffect. So initially, we set the user ID to a blank string using useState. This function, the handle login, gets the response from the Facebook service and sets the user ID to the individual's actual Facebook ID. Then we need to check whether this user already exists in our Superbase table. So we select from the users column a user ID which matches the actual user ID. Using this, and the count function there gets the exact number of matches. And if the count is 0, then we write the user ID to the table and also set a saved articles entry with a blank array, which can then be filled later on as the user saves articles. If the count is not 0, then this code doesn't run and the user ID is already in the table. So once the user has logged in successfully, the saved article array can be accessed for retrieval of saved articles and then rendered on a saved article page. The actual saved article array contains objects of JSON data which contain details of the saved articles themselves. Newly saved articles are added to the beginning of the array, meaning they are rendered on the top of the page. The user can also delete articles from the array by matching the title of the displayed article to an index of the array and then deleting the matching array entry. We can see this on this saved article container piece of code. Initially, saved articles are set to an empty array. They're using useState. And this useEffect hook connects to the Supabase service, retrieves their saved articles based on the user ID, and then sets the saved articles to the array that's just been retrieved, and then uses a map function to render saved articles. And if I just demonstrate that. So at the minute, I'm not logged in. So if I log in there, it says log in to share and save articles. So I'm not logged in. Log in. Now I can see my saved articles. So there's some I did earlier. Very interesting. If I go back to live data, I'm particularly interested in Gwyneth Paltrow's ski trial. So I'll save that. Article saved. Go back there and lo and behold, there it is. Actually, I'm not interested in that, so I'll remove that. So for us to decide whether the article has been saved already or not, the first thing we need to do is get the list of articles that's already been saved. We do that by having a useState, which creates a blank array, and then retrieve the saved articles, and then fill that array with the saved articles. So that's fine. We've got a list of saved articles. How do we know if the article in question has already been saved? We can do that by checking the saved article array against the article in question. And we have an already saved state there, which is set to 0 initially. And then we use a find index function to match the article title against the article titles in the saved array. If there's a match, the already saved is set to the index of the article. If there's no match, it is set to -1. And then we can use those figures to create a conditional render. So if the article is already saved, the index is going to be 0 or greater. And then we get the article saved text. If it's -1, that means it doesn't exist, and we get the save button. So once we've had the conditional render of either being able to save an article or the article's already been saved, if we're going to save the article, we need a method to do that. And we have this method update saved articles, which is here. So basically all we're doing is writing a new array to our table in our database. Initially, every article is broken down into a object called article JSON. So we've got title, description, content, image URL, article URL, source, and published at, which is the time the article is actually published. So every article is broken down into that. And we can then retrieve the saved articles already and then use the spread operator to insert the article JSON into the saved articles at position or index 0, and then write the new array to the saved articles column in the database. against the matching user ID. So the remove saved article function is done by, first of all, matching the index of the saved article against the saved article array, which is retrieved from the database. This is done by this piece of code. So basically matching the title of the article on screen against titles in the saved article, which then sets the index to the matching index. When the remove saved article button is clicked, the remove element bit of code runs. So basically we're splicing the saved article array at position index of article, which is determined there, and removing one element. We then write the new saved articles to the database using this bit of code. So you can see there, updating saved articles with new saved articles, which are just written there. And we then set the visibility of that particular saved article to invisible using that, rather than doing a fresh API call every time. Some of the problems we experienced during the development of the NewsDesk app were the fact that the free tier of the GNews API, which is where we got our news articles from, has a limit of 100 API calls in any 24-hour time period. So to prevent exceeding that limit during the development, a test mode was implemented which allowed the use of real article data saved into a JSON file, which could then be accessed to render test articles rather than actual live data and use up the API call in a short amount of time. So what we did, we had a constant called test mode, which if it's false, we're in live mode, and if it's true, we're in test mode. And that's used there. So if we're in test mode, we get the test articles, which look like that. So that's the same format as the actual API response, but saved locally so we can use that to render the page rather than getting a fresh API call every time. And if we're not in test mode, then we get actual data from the API. Some of the NPM packages that we looked at were out of date. They'd not been updated in a while, and as such weren't compatible with the version of React that we were using without a false install. So erring on the side of precaution, we decided that we weren't going to use those particular packages. There are a few things we'd like to have included if we had additional time. The GNews API does have a number of parameters available, so we could use those, things like language, country, and the timestamp of the articles. We could use those to present a customized UI for the user. Also, the Supabase backend service does have a number of options for login methods, such as the username, password methods, and multiple social login systems, such as Google and GitHub, and many more. So these could be implemented via the Supabase service.